Thank you. Jimmy was way too kind to me. I expected different from him. He kind of broke form tonight, and it's thrown me off guard. I do want to, before I get to any serious remarks, I do want to ask Pope if he would please stick around for a while and coach me up on this popcorn routine. That sounds like something that would go over very well with some of the young men we have in the program right now. Much more gullible than the guys you played with by far. I do want to follow up on the story that Jimmy told you. It was actually a suitcase that I carried the clothes in, and it did have a lock on it. And I did know that the guys would do whatever they could to get the suitcase from me. We want to use it because we're playing cards in the back of the bus was a usual excuse. We were on the way to the University of Maryland for an NCAA game, and they finally broke the lock. They got to the combination. Malcolm Hastings, who was a backup goalie, was the perpetrator. He took my pair of socks. They were brand new, going to be worn for the game. And he cut the toes out while we were out on the field practicing. And I had to go back in the locker room, and I opened up the suitcase to get something, and I noticed these little fuzzy threads. Malcolm had made a serious mistake. He had not cleaned up after himself and disposed of the evidence. I believe Ben Sherman was our manager at the time, and I proceeded to grab a hold of Ben. I did have to threaten Ben, but I finally got him to tell me exactly who had done the trick. So I didn't say, I swore him to secrecy, again with threats of physical violence. And I didn't say anything to Malcolm. I went back out on the field. We had a nice practice. We went to, I believe it was a Holiday Inn, and I had the socks in my pocket. And they were serving us individually. So I went back into the dining area, and I got one of the women who was serving the meals. And when the meals were served, the plates were covered. So I told her, I want you to take a plate. I want you to put these socks on the plate, cover the socks. I pointed to Malcolm through the window. She took it out, put it, and he was served last. Now the rest of the team didn't know what I was up to, but they did know what he had been up to. She puts the plate down, he takes the cover off, and he about fell out of the chair. That put a bit of a slowdown to the pranks for a while, but then they regained some momentum. They thought that I would have forgotten and gone on to other things. I need to thank Jan and the committee for my selection to the Hall of Fame. I think like the others, it's not something you expect. It's an incredible thrill when you get the call from Jan, and the thrill turns into feeling very humble when you think about the people who are already in the Hall of Fame. And in my case, thinking about a lot of people who probably deserve to be in at this time. It's an incredible honor, and it really has taken me a little further aback than what I thought it might. I see Tommy Mays sitting out there grinning. I won't cry, Tommy, I promise you. I'd like to thank the Alumni House and Dining Services. I've been to these, probably every one of you said this was 27, so this is probably my 27th that I've come to it. It gets better every year. It's an incredible experience, always has been, to see players return, not only those who are being inducted, but those who are friends of the inductees. We get to tell stories, mostly embellished. All I'll say is as you get older, they'll become more embellished, which is great. That's part of the fun of remembering our times here at Washington and Lee. There are people that I need to thank, and first and foremost is my family. I think people who make their way in coaching and athletic administration understand that the job is 24/7 and sometimes 24/7 plus. And there is no way that we are successful if we don't have the support of our family. I certainly had that. My wife and the kids understood the rigors of the job, the hours away, the recruiting, team trips. As an administrator, having to follow the teams to make sure that the coaches didn't get us into any trouble. The players were the dean's problem. They understood in a way that never made me feel like I was cutting them short in any way. I think we were a classic example of a family that went by the quality of the time that we had together rather than the quantity of the time that we had together. I don't have the words to thank Sandy enough for what she did with the home and the kids in my absences. With us tonight is daughter Amy, her daughter Ella, who is 9, going on 16, Mason, who is sound asleep. Members of our family think of him as my mini-me. I certainly hope he outgrows that before too much longer. I'd hate for him to be too burdened in life. There's another group of people that I need to thank. Some of them were mentioned in the intro by Mr. Farrer. Bill McHenry, who hired me. I had known Bill before Washington and Lee. He was a very special friend before I came down here and was a very special friend after my arrival, and helped me tremendously during my early years here as a coach. And as he said, he did direct me toward administration. That turned out to be a very good thing, even though I may have fought him on it a little bit at first, my instincts to coach stepping up. I need to mention Dick Miller. It's been spoken that I am a detail-oriented guy, probably. Dick taught me a lot. He was an administrative mentor to me. I've joked with some people that one of the best things he ever taught me was the ability to say no to coaches who would come in and ask for foolish things. Mike Walsh, who we had the pleasure of working together during an extended time. Mike showed a lot of confidence and trust in me to allow me to just be myself and be an administrator. And on top of that, Mike was a very special friend. Jack Emmer, we spent 10 years together during our Division I days, most of them very exhilarating, some of them very exasperating, but quite an experience. The late Gary Fallon, who I had the pleasure of coaching football with for 13 years. Gary was an incredible coach. He was an incredible friend. We spent a lot of hours together talking about all kinds of things on the various trips we would take to officiate lacrosse games in the spring. There's also a group of coaches that I need to mention. Jan Hathorn being one, Jim Stagnita being another, Mike Serino, and Gene McCabe. They were kind enough to afford me the opportunity to work with their programs as a volunteer coach and to continue to pursue my passion for the sport of lacrosse. I have to say that there were some eyebrows raised when Jan asked me to help her. There were those who thought that maybe my coaching approach, which politely could be described as intense or so, that there was a distinct possibility that I would make some of the girls cry. Well, I'm happy to say I only made one of the women cry. That was a goalie. It was not Brooke, although I did fight with her over her bandana. I hit the woman. It happened to be a Friday practice. I'm not so sure she was hurt so much as distressed at the fear that there would be a bruise that would not be covered by her fancy dress gown, which was that weekend. The times with Stags were interesting. I think Pope and the guys can interpret what they want out of that. Seeing the red line rise and the vein throb. One of the great lines was Timmy Downs to Mike Walsh. Mike, if that vein pops, does that mean I'm the head coach? Mike Serino, who was a very good friend during the time he was here, and Gene McCabe, who I have the pleasure of currently working with the men's program. Gene, I know that Sandy is especially happy that you are keeping me occupied and off the streets of Las Vegas and out of trouble. When Jan told me that I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, one of the first questions I asked her after we got over some of the details was who was in the class with me. Although I do feel like the grandfather of the class, I was extremely pleased when she told me that it was Whitney, Pope, Paul, and Jessica. Now, I have a little history with Whitney and Pope from being involved in the lacrosse programs when they were both playing. I have to say, and I've been watching WNL lacrosse for 42 years, I have to say that I can count on one hand the players that I have seen who were better lacrosse players than you two were with your sports. Paul, you caused me some problems watching you play soccer. I wasn't going to go here, but you opened the door when you mentioned the fact that your father was a football player. Father Bill was a senior my first year coaching football, and as was spoken, he was a very good football player. And when I would watch Paul play soccer, I admired his athleticism, his intensity, and all that. I couldn't help but look out on the field and see him in a helmet and shoulder pads as a strong safety or an outside linebacker. I have not to this day, and I asked him tonight and he still dodged me, I have not gotten a satisfactory answer from Bill as to how he let Paul get away to the other football. Jessica was just fun to watch play basketball. Mike Walsh and I used to just watch the games and just marvel at the intensity at which she played and the way she ran the floor. It was just an inspiration to watch, and it's a real pleasure to me to be in an induction class with you four. It's been mentioned that one of the things I've done is to help coaches and help the players, and that's just the way I was raised. That's the way the people that I played for were. And that's one of the reasons why I went into coaching, was to be able to be involved with people. As I've thought about tonight, since Jan told me last spring that I was being inducted, obviously, as I believe Whitney said, the games flash through your mind, but they're a little fuzzy. What really comes back to you are the people that you were involved with. And what I'd like to do tonight is take the opportunity, since so many of those people are here, is to just say thank you to the administrators, coaches, parents, alumni, and especially players who have had such an impact on my career here. You've taught me a lot. You definitely helped me grow as a person, and I'm very thankful to you for that. You've made my time here at Washington and Lee not only meaningful, but enjoyable. I've always been proud to be a general. Thank you.